When I was younger, I had a picture in my head of what my late 60s would look like. I thought I'd feel settled, content, and wise. I imagined I'd wake up every day with a sense of peace, surrounded by family, enjoying the fruits of a life well lived. But no one warned me about the unexpected parts. The loneliness that creeps in when friends start fading away, the frustration of a body that doesn't always cooperate, and the feeling that the world is moving too fast, leaving me behind. No one told me how painful it would be to look in the mirror and see a face that doesn't quite feel like mine anymore. The lines, the wrinkles, they tell a story, but sometimes I wonder, am I still the same person underneath? And perhaps the hardest part? I never expected to feel invisible. People don't always see me the way they used to. I walk into a room and it's as if I've blended into the background. Like my years of experience, my wisdom, my struggles somehow don't matter anymore. But I've learned something. Aging isn't about disappearing. It's about shifting into a new chapter, one that can be just as meaningful, fulfilling, and joyful as any other stage of life. And if you've ever felt like this, if you've ever struggled with the reality of growing older, I want you to stay with me, because I'm about to share everything I've learned about aging that no one ever told me, and how I found a way to embrace it rather than fear it. Here are 6 things I have learned about aging. Number 5 is the most important of them all. Lesson number 1. Your body changes in ways you never expected, but you can fight back. I remember the exact moment it hit me. It was a regular Tuesday afternoon, nothing special. I had dropped my keys on the floor, and when I bent down to pick them up, I hesitated before standing back up. Why? Because my knees hurt. I don't know why this moment stood out to me. I had experienced little aches and pains before, but this was different. This was the moment I realized something had shifted, something that wasn't going to shift back. That night I lay in bed and thought about all the ways my body had changed. How I moved slower now, how my energy didn't last the way it used to, how my skin had softened, how my muscles weren't as strong. And for the first time, I felt fear. When I was 40, I used to hear older people talk about aches and pains, and I thought, oh, that's just part of aging. But let me tell you, it hits differently when it's your body. Something is humbling about waking up and realizing that simple things, bending down, getting out of bed, standing for long periods, aren't as effortless as they used to be. Some mornings my knees feel stiff. On other days my energy levels are unpredictable. And let's not even talk about how my metabolism has slowed down. One meal feels like it sticks with me for days. But here's the truth, movement is the key. For a long time, I avoided exercise. I told myself, I'm too old to start now. What's the point? But that mindset was a trap. The moment you stop moving is the moment your body starts giving up on you. So I started small. Daily walks, even 20 minutes a day made a difference. My mood improved and my joints didn't feel as stiff. Stretching every morning. I used to think stretching was for athletes. Now I realize it's for everyone, especially us older folks. Light strength training. I was hesitant at first, but simple resistance exercises helped me feel stronger and more capable. The first few weeks were hard, but slowly my body started responding. The aches didn't disappear completely, but they became manageable. And for the first time in a while, I felt in control again. If you're struggling with fatigue, stiffness, or feeling like your body is betraying you, trust me, the best thing you can do is keep moving. Lesson number 2. Sleep becomes a struggle, but you can fix it. No one told me that sleep would become so difficult as I aged. I used to fall asleep the moment my head hit the pillow. Now, some nights I toss and turn for hours. On other nights I wake up at 3 a.m. and can't go back to sleep. At first I ignored it, but then I noticed something. Lack of sleep made everything worse. My mood, my energy, even my memory. So I made some changes. I stopped using screens before bed. The blue light from phones and TVs messes with sleep, so I started reading instead. I created a bedtime routine. A warm shower, a cup of herbal tea, and soft music helped signal to my body that it was time to rest. I kept my room cool and dark. I didn't realize how much light and temperature affected my sleep until I made adjustments. Now I sleep better than I have in years. If you're struggling, try making small changes. Your body will thank you. Lesson number 3, loneliness hits harder than you expect, and it's up to you to fight it. Aging comes with a cruel irony. When you're young, your life is full of people, friends, co-workers, family. You're constantly surrounded by conversation, plans, and connection. But as the years go by, the world gets quieter. At first it happens slowly. Friends get busy, loved ones move away. Then the losses start coming. People you love, people you thought would always be there. I remember the first time I truly felt alone. It wasn't in an empty house. It wasn't during a quiet evening by myself. It was at a family gathering. I was sitting at the dinner table, surrounded by laughter, by conversation, by people I loved. And yet, I felt invisible. The conversation flowed around me, but no one asked me for my thoughts. The younger ones laughed about things I didn't understand, and at some point I realized no one noticed that I had stopped talking. That night I cried, not because I was angry, but because I felt like I was disappearing. When we're younger, friendships seem effortless. We make friends in school and at work through shared experiences. But as we get older, people move away, life gets busier, and some of the people we thought would be there forever simply aren't. And then one day, you wake up and realize the phone isn't ringing as much as it used to. The invitations become fewer, and suddenly, loneliness isn't just an idea, it's a reality. I spent years thinking this is just part of aging. But you know what? Loneliness is not an inevitable part of getting older. It's something we allow to happen when we stop making an effort. But here's what I realized. Loneliness isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you have to fight against. So I forced myself to do something uncomfortable. I started saying yes again. I joined a local walking group. At first, it felt awkward, like I was intruding. But over time, I started looking forward to those walks. I reconnected with old friends. Some were still there, waiting for a call. Others had moved on. But I found comfort in rekindling those bonds. I found online communities. Who says older people can't be tech-savvy? I discovered Facebook groups for seniors, forums where people share stories, and even virtual book clubs. The key? Don't wait for a connection to come to you. Go out and find it. You will be very surprised at how many connections you will make by going out. Lesson number 4, time moves faster, and that's a wake-up call. There was a time when a year felt like forever. Now I blink and a year is gone. It's terrifying how quickly time moves as you get older. And I realized something painful. There were so many things I waited to do. I always told myself, I'll travel later. I'll take up painting later. I'll tell my loved ones how much they mean to me later. When I was 30, a year felt like an eternity. Now, a year feels like a few months, and it's terrifying how quickly time slips away. There were so many things I told myself I'd do later. Travel more, learn an instrument, write a book, say I love you more often. But later has a way of turning into never, and that's a hard lesson to learn when you start running out of time. So I made a decision, no more waiting. I took that trip I'd been dreaming about for years. I signed up for an online course and finally learned to play the piano. I started journaling, writing down my stories and my thoughts, because I realized my voice still matters. If you're watching this and thinking, I'll do it someday, let me tell you something. Someday is today. Lesson number 5. The world might treat you differently, but that doesn't mean you have to shrink. One day I walked into a store, and the cashier spoke to me slowly, as if I couldn't understand. Another day, a young person offered to carry my groceries, not out of kindness, but out of the assumption that I couldn't. And then there was the moment when someone explained how to use a smartphone to me, even though I had been using one for years. At first, I laughed it off, but deep down it hurt, because the world doesn't see me as me anymore. It sees an old person. One of the hardest things to accept about aging is that people's perceptions of you change. Strangers assume I need help with the simplest tasks. Younger people talk to me like I don't understand technology. Sometimes I feel like I'm being dismissed before I even open my mouth. At first it made me angry. I wanted to prove I was still sharp, still capable, but then I realized something. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. It took me a while to come to terms with this, but here's what I learned. You don't have to accept the role the world gives you. I know who I am, and confidence isn't just for the young. I started dressing in a way that made me feel good. I took care of myself, not for anyone else, but for me. I stopped letting the world's assumptions define me. I spoke up when people assumed I didn't understand something. I reminded myself that my wisdom is valuable, even if the world forgets. Aging doesn't mean losing your identity. It means owning it even more fiercely. Aging doesn't mean fading away. It means showing up differently. Lesson number 6. Happiness is a choice at any age. I used to think happiness was something that just happened if life was good, but I've learned that happiness is a choice. I've met people my age who are bitter and always focused on what they've lost. And I've met people in their 70s and 80s who radiate joy. The difference? Perspective? Instead of focusing on what I can't do anymore, I focus on what I can do. Instead of dwelling on the past, I find joy in the present. Instead of letting age define me, I choose to embrace every single day. Because at the end of the day, life isn't over. It's still happening, and we get to decide how we experience it. One last thing, friends. I'm 68, and I never thought aging would feel like this. But you know what? It's not something to fear. Take care of your body. Stay connected. Stop putting things off. And never let the world tell you that you don't matter anymore. Now tell me, what's been your biggest surprise about aging? Let's talk in the comments.